Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for inviting us and organising this event, and it is a pleasure to be here. The presentation we have prepared today for you is a double act, so that's myself and Dr. Farhan Khan. So I'm Kapadia, Technology Manager for the Electronics theme. I've been working at the MTC since 2012. Developing capability in the digital manufacturing for electronics and growing the additive manufacturing in electronics. So today I'll be presenting some of the latest advances in additive manufacturing for electronic systems. My colleague, Dr. Farhan Khan, will be presenting the design for additive manufacturing for electronics. Farhan is an advanced research engineer in the design for additive manufacturing team. Before joining the MTC, Dr. Khan worked at the University of Derby's Institute of Innovation in Sustainable Engineering in a knowledge transfer role where he advised an aerospace company in the adoption of additive manufacturing, tooling and product development. And his main interest includes design for polymer and metal AM. So just for the benefit of some of you who don't know the MTC, I would like to take a few moments to share a couple of slides, who we are and what we do. The Manufacturing Technology Centre, based in Coventry, UK. We are a non-profit organisation. We opened in 2011. We are an independent research technology organisation. Our aim is to bridge valley of death, which I will explain in my next slide. Our goal is to help improve innovative manufacturing ideas by either working in collaboration or one-to-one. We offer other services, such as developing and enhancing manufacturing system solutions, and that could be through training and development. So bridging the valley of death, we play a part in the TRL 4 to 6. For clarification, TRLs are a method for understanding the technical maturity of a technology during its acquisition. TRLs will allow organizations to have a consistent datum of reference for understanding technology evolution, regardless of their technical background. Now, the universities play a part in the TRL 1 to 3, where some of the great ideas are explored. Now, we call it the Valley of Death because some of these good ideas that universities or organizations have does not go any further. So the TRL 4, due to constraints of funding, scaling, or innovative support. So our remit is to work with the universities organizations to explore these good ideas and accelerate the program through TRL 4 to 6. Now, TRL 7 is where the industry plays a part, where it has been de-risked and proven. So today's main objective is to embrace the vision by sharing some of the advances in additive manufacturing for electronics. Now, I would like to take a step back and talk about what is additive manufacturing for electronics. Now, additive manufacturing, also known as a 3D printing, a transformative approach to industrial production that enables the creation of lighter, stronger parts and systems. Now, it has benefits. So additive manufacturing for electronics involves electronics and all electronics components and circuits that act as a load-bearing structure and replacing dumb structures. So the idea is to deliver electronics functionality in new locations and simplified construction. So the advantage and the purpose is to reduce system weight, size, cost, and improve functionality and reliability. It has also the benefits, such as being environmentally friendly. There are also commercial benefits, including faster time to market, manufacturing prototypes, pilot and small production series parts, and swiftly implementing customer-specific solutions. See in Robert's presentation, but how big is market potential? I mean, I did manage to find a source, a slide from Moulded Intelligence. Now, Moulded Intelligence reports contains a 5-year forecast, including comprehensive market evaluations and insight into the likely areas of future growth and within the featured industry. Now, according to Moulded Intelligence, the research shows that the main global regional growth in green is Asia, Australia, followed by North America and Europe in yellow, and a low growth in South America and Africa in red. Now, in terms of financially, I've managed to source information from IDTech X, where global growth is predicted to grow from $15 billion to $80 billion by 2025. Now, due to COVID, this might push things back and might slow things down. However, we still believe it is going to be picked up, and we need to start pushing its innovation. So, why are we starting to promote additive manufacturing for electronics? Now, I'd like to go back into history, and I think Robert covered some aspects of it. But single-sided boards were commercialized during the 1950s and the 60s. Now, if we go back to the 50s, PCBs only had tracks printed on one side of the board. The introduction of plates through hole holes also became a reality. This technology made it possible to connect components to tracks on the inner layer of a PCB. Now, from 1950 to present, it is fair to say that we have advanced electronics manufacturing achieving components so small, which now is classified as dust. Also, looking at some of the advanced technology in RF high-speed technology, and now since 2016, a lot of focus and work has been done combining mechanical parts with electronics, enabling highly flexible manufacturing of personalized 3D electronic devices. Now, there is a lot of low-level activity and independent sessions being carried out. Most AIM sessions I've attended tend to be overseas, and this could be a start. A design for AM could be a great platform where AM can be discussed and disseminated. So to see what is happening in the world of additive manufacturing of electronics, I've put together some advances in technologies which is currently in existence and can do many things people want. So to give you a quick overview, there are 4 main types of additive processes for applying conductive ink or dielectric ink. The first one is inkjet printing, small droplets of inks about 10 to 100 micrometers in diameters, which can be deposited under digital control to produce the required printed pattern on the substrate. Now, in the case of printed electronics, small metallic particles, usually silver, gold, or copper, suspended in a suitable fugitive liquid are used in the ink. The second one is aerosol jet. In this process, this is patented by Optimec. An atomizer generates an aerosol of material droplets using ultrasonics or a pneumatic means, which is then carried by a nitrogen gas stream to the deposition. Now, the stream is then sprayed onto the desired substrate. The deposition head will be mounted on a multi-axle stage to follow the contour of complex non-planar surfaces. Now, in addition to the high-density aerosol consisting of micro droplets, it can be focused to produce thicknesses from 10 to 150 microns and thicknesses from 10 nanometers to 5 micrometers. The third one is screen printing. It is one of the cheapest and simplest, still very widely used, but it's printed onto flat substrates. In this process, a screen is located above the area to be printed, and the ink is loaded on the screen. A squeegee then squeegees the ink slowly through the mesh onto the substrate, only momentarily touching the substrate, leaving behind a wet imprint. The fourth one is laser direct technology for electronics. Company like Messerscribe use it. They use a 6-axis laser as a mode of deposition of a variety of electronic grade materials on the substrate. It is a form of microthermal plasma printing and allows fine thermal spray deposition of electronic material, usually copper, nickel, platinum, and palladium, and without marking. And I'm sure there will be many others that out there can additively apply inks onto substrate. So let's look at some of these technologies who are currently active in the additive manufacturing for electronics. Now, Print Electronics Limited, a company based in Tamworth, they're also agents of Neotech. The picture on the left is done using a piezo jet process. The ink is used is a high in viscosity. The picture on the right is an inkjet process using digitally printed low viscosity paste, which is suitable for higher current low resistance application, such as antennas or circuits on 3D surfaces. The patented aerosol jet process utilizes an innovative aerodynamics focusing technology to produce electronic and physical structures with feature sizes as small as 5 microns. This can produce a wide area conformal coating. The aerosol jet system supports a wide variety of materials, including nanoparticle inks and screen printing pastes, conductive polymers, insulators, adhesives, and even biological matters. Now, aerosol jet printers are used directly to print functional electronic circuitry and components onto low temperature, non-planar substrates without the need for matte screens or plating. Now, we've been working with Optimec via Semtronics, who are the UK agents for Optimec, and we've learned a lot, and it's amazing stuff that it can do with this equipment. So molded interconnect devices and laser direct structuring LDS technology now work together to integrate functions within one three-dimensional package, resulting in a high capability devices that are compact and lightweight. Now the process is the thermoplastic material of the circuit substrate, which is doped in a laser activated metal compound. The illustration video using an LPF machine shows the laser scrubs the conductor tracks by ablating the surface slightly while particles are simultaneously dislodged from the metal compound and dispersed into the microscopically rough surface. The next stage after the laser plating is the chemical plating. The metal particles from the nuclei for plating, which could be dipped in electrolytes, copper, nickel, and gold bath, which gives you the interconnection connection layers. Oops, I've just gone a bit too far. So this is another interesting technology developed by Tactotech. They claim this technology has a potential benefit reducing electronics weight by 70%. Now, it's quite a novel technology. I've written the process on there, but basically, in a nutshell, they print it on a DuPont film. They place the screen print the tracks onto a DuPont film. They place the components on a 2D pick and place machine. They cure the material, and then they form onto a 3D shape. It's a novel way of doing it. We've had discussions with them past, and the market they're looking at the moment is predominantly automotive for trimmed and car parts. So it's worth checking their website. It is a great technology. Okay, so nano demo machine Dragonfly is one of a kind that can actively print dielectric and conductive ink simultaneously. Now, the LDM stands for lights out digital manufacturing. It is basically what it says on the tin. You set the print off, you put the lights off, and you come back, the job is finished. Now, this is a machine that we have at the MTC. This unique machine can print 3D or 3D print multi-layer PCB. The process it takes Gerber format, which we convert to a switch file. This is the file the machine reads. Once you calibrate the machine, the process is that it prints the bottom solder mask and pads, then prints and sinters the conductive layer on the fly. The next process, it prints and polymerizes the dielectric layer, and this process repeats for each layer, and finally finishes printing the top solder masks and pads. So we know very well it can 3D print a multi-layer PCB with more than 32 layers. In fact, in some cases, it could go up to 50 plus layers. However, it can do things beyond what PCB fabricators cannot do. Now, let's take a few examples. The picture on the left illustrates that you can put side-mounted components, good for putting RFID tags and antennas all around the edge without the need putting at the top or the bottom side. The bottom left picture is like an MID style module where it can print three-dimensional. The IC socket enables integrating ICs within the PCB layers. This can be for reducing package size, saves real estate, and opens a path to miniaturization of products. A medical device with 3D integrated packaging with an IC mounted and printed RF antenna and battery socket all in one that can be done. Other use cases that you can 3D print voltage transformer and conical inductors. So these are just a handful of examples that it can 3D print using the Dragonfly LDM. So are so many other use cases I can share with you today. However, being conscious of time, I have selected a few examples which unlock some great potential of additive manufacturing for electronics. It is fair to say that the electronics is the brain of everything, and by integrating into other material can be of advantage. Now, the first picture you see is a printed antenna on a plastic housing. The technology has been established and being used by mobile manufacturers. Now, additive been around, by, the phones we carry today have this technology. I can remember the old days where you used to pull the aerials. They now 3D print the aerials directly onto the casing, again for space, cost, and so forth. The second picture is a transparent antenna. Now, this is a great innovation by Wave Optics. They use metamaterials, transparent antennas, which are used for integrating antennas functionality, obviously in surfaces, while maintaining visibility, such as HoloLens, vehicle windshields and windows. One of the key benefits is that the high conductivity is maintained without sacrificing the electromagnetic behavior of the antennas. The third picture is an e-textile printing directly onto cotton glove. Now, this was an internal project that we did at the MTC with a company called Pirita, demonstrating how we can put electronics onto textile. The first picture is the bionic ant, and this is a really good example produced by Festo. Basically, a group of them demonstrated a bionic ant inspired by nature. I highly recommended that there's a video produced by this forum that shows where the nature was from and how they produce a bionic ant. The fifth picture is the Dragonfly, that we can additively print the 3D MID parts. And at the moment, there's so much potential looking at the machine in terms of printing, as I mentioned, conical inductors and antennas at the moment has been widely been asked for, been used for, and there's so many wonderful and great things that this machine can do, which might help take this additive manufacturing to another level. So all being good, we can print tracks on 3D objects, whatever option we use, whether it's an inkjet, whether it's aerosol jetting or piezo jetting. The challenge is the post processing for additive manufacturing electronics. So there are several equipment out in the market which can dispense, place, and sinter on a 3D surface. Currently on the market that I am aware of, offering 3D and place machine is the Yamaha S10, S20 machine. The machine can dispense and place on 3D surfaces. Now, there is also another machine supplied by Heike Automation. I know this machine can dispense, place, and laser sinter. One of our founders at Loughborough University have one of these in the UK. Now, I visited a company in Switzerland, and they had a complete setup of doing injection molding and also be able to put, using the LPKF machine, 3D pick and place. And the pick and place they had there was an assembly on. I did have a chat with assembly on, but they stopped manufacturing the 3D pick and place several years ago. But again, with the growth with additive manufacturing, I don't see any reason why that would be considered coming back on the market sooner or later. So once you've dispensed and placed components, you will need to bond pads with the substrate forming an electrical connection. So method like photonic soldering can work. So how does this work? So in this 3D animated video that was created by Holt Center in the Netherlands. Now we start off with some conductive traps that can be bare copper or copper with EDIC coating on top, or even printed conductive. Now with solder paste already deposited. Now we pick and place a component on top of the solder paste as you would normally do, and then instead of putting it in a reflow oven, you do a solder reflow using a very bright flashes of light. Anything that absorbs lights gets hot, while anything that does not remains cool. So the whole process takes less than a few seconds, and both. If I just click onto the video, the whole process takes less than a few seconds, and both heating up and cooling down is pretty much instantaneous. So one thing to note here is that the substrate underneath is in this animation transparent. So this to showcase that this sort of process is applicable to even unthinkable materials such as low-cost plastics like PET, pen, or carbonite. Now they have been able to achieve solder reflow and really good solder joints on FR4 or even metal substrates. So for my part, just to finish off, I would like to convey my final message for adopting additive manufacturing for electronics. Think big, start small, and scale fast. Now, it was mentioned earlier, with billions of new products introduced every year, and with Internet of Things or IoT, and the largest growing segment in this electronics consumer market, imagine every part made has some element of electronics, whether it's measuring temperature, strain, vibration, or antennas for receiving or sending data. So in order to get people on board is to embrace the vision. This can only be achieved by getting people involved and working as a team. Now, getting the people curious and not concerned. Transparency is key for success. Sorry, transparency is key for success. Hopefully, by demonstrating practical solutions, it will show value to you and your organization and customers. So thank you for listening. Now I'll ask Dr. Farhan to present design for additive manufacturing for electronics.
Thanks, Naeem. I'll share my screen.
Thank you.
I hope you can see my screen.
Not yet.
I can see it. Yes, I can see it too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be speaking at this event. And before I begin the second part of our joint presentation, I would like to briefly introduce the National Center. So the MTC hosts the National Center for AM, and we're working with supply chain companies and partners in the development and adoption of AM. Along with the National Center, the MTC also hosts the European Space Agency's AM Benchmarking Center since 2017, and is also an ASTM Center of Excellence since 2018, which means we are heavily involved with ASTM in the development of AM standards in collaboration with other partners. In terms of expertise and equipment we have, as you can see on the screen, we have a wide range of systems in metal, polymer, and ceramics AM. So on the left, you can see some of the metal systems that we have, including powder bed fusion, as well as binder jetting and DED and other technologies. On the right, top right, you can see some of the polymer systems that we have, including powder bed fusion, material jetting, material extrusion, water photopolymerization, and also the latest development is Dragonfly, which I think has been there for over a year or so for printing electronics. And we also have systems for ceramics AM. And the bottom right machine is a recent development. So the inventory is kept up to date with the existing latest commercially available systems. Right. So I'll jump into my section of the presentation, and I'll talk about design thinking and how a designer for AM needs to kind of think differently than traditional manufacturing methods. Then I'll talk about the general design for AM or DFAM workflow and how the existing knowledge could be translated for electronics. And I'll show some design guidance that is for the Dragonfly 3D printer, and also at the end I'll talk about the challenges briefly. In a traditional setting, if a designer needs to change a component in the assembly, then that becomes pretty challenging, because not only they would look at redesigning the component, but also thinking about the components around it and the overall assembly. But not only that, the cost of redesign could be even more because of retooling. Um, and that could be challenging for every iteration. So design for manufacture and assembly, so DFMA, is about the designer understanding the constraints imposed by manufacturing processes. So in a traditional setting, that would be draft angle for injection molding, for example, or tool access in machining. Now with AM, that kind of changes. So we're adding material, and that means that you can only deposit material where it's required, and a designer should kind of optimize the design based on the function of the component, and that really opens up the possibilities for novel designs and novel methods of embedding, for example, sensors in electronics and reducing the weight and cost of components in many cases, and also not only that, but also reduction in the number of components, so assembly reduction and consolidation. So what we generally advise for the route to design for AM is to take a three-level approach. The first is design for the application, not for the process. Then begin to introduce the process suitability, for example, part size and considering the machine and architecture that you have at your disposal, and then introduce the process-specific design guidelines or rules that are suitable for your process. Now, those of you who are new to AM, we've seen there's a general perception that 3D printing is as simple as you've got an idea, you create a CAD model, you send it off to the machine, and then you get the end-use part. The question is it that simple? Not. It's not that simple. There are several steps that go in the design for AM workflow to get a functional component. So the first stage is the definition. So where you capture the requirements of a component from the idea, and then you think about the product level or the system level redesign. Then you move on to the concept design stage, where you generate a concept. So in polymer and metal, you might be using structural optimization techniques or software tools to optimize your design. Then you would take that optimized design generally and remodel it and validate it with tools such as FE analysis, for example. And then you introduce the design kind of specific rules for the process. So in polymer and metal, we'll be thinking about the overhang and other kind of limitations, minimum wall thicknesses and support structure, for example. And then you move on to further detailed design and prepare a component. Ideally, you would do a process simulation. So if you're using a process in metal or polymer AM where there's high thermal gradients involved, then that could lead to part distortion during the build. So you to minimize the cost and time, you would ideally simulate the part in that kind of environment. And then you would move on to the manufacture stage, where you slice your component, your 3D models, and convert them into G codes for the machine to understand, and then you move on to manufacturing the component. Once that's made, generally that involves post-processing stages. So in metal and polymer, that'll be powder removal, for example, support structure removal, finishing, and machining, and inspection, and then you get the end-use parts. So you can see the whole picture here, from the idea stage to the end-use parts. Now, how will this differ for electronics, and what can we learn from this? So if we kind of can we translate this to printing electronics kind of scenario? So looking at that, if you look at the bottom workflow on the slide, I've kind of highlighted a few boxes which are kind of unique to electronic 3D printing. So system level design would be, or part level design, a designer would think more about the surface finish, where your conductor tracks are being adhered to, the substrate, for example, material, and the geometry features. So you may have a planar or complex non-planar surfaces that you would be printing on. And then you would move on to concept generation of optimized tracks. So comparing that with traditional polymer and metal AM, where you would be using topology optimization and other techniques to optimize your design, here you'll be using 2D or 3D layout optimization for your conductor tracks, and then validation of that, and then moving on to slicing, and then preparation of your model and printing it. So printing that might involve printing the component directly with conductor tracks and dielectric in the same build, or it might be building on top of a prefabricated component, and then moving on to post-processing. So that might be a curing or post-curing, and especially assembly and packaging, where you'll be embedding your electronic components onto your printed circuit. And then you would move on towards the end part. So as you can see, the similar to the other metal, and comparing it to metal and polymer workflow, there is a kind of discreteness to this. So for a designer, so they might be designing the component in a CAD software, as you can see on the top right of the screen. So and they might be translating that information and combining that with electronics circuit design, and then also kind of translating that to machine G code in order to print the component. So there are challenges that exist at the moment. Now this slide gives an example actually about the Dragonfly system that we have, and some of the design rules that you can see on the table. Now, it is, for a designer, it is crucial to understand the machine capabilities and limitations during the design phase. And these are design guides rather than rules, and they could be tweaked. They depend upon the design and also the print parameters. And last slide is about challenges. So as said, the process is still discrete, and it needs a more streamlined workflow. Also, more thought and exploration needs to be done in design for assembly. Knowledge, the lack of knowledge and training in this area, since it's a relatively new area in AM as well. Material compatibility, the lack of standards, for example. Cost is also a factor that we need to look at. Build volume. So as you can see in the Dragonfly system, the maximum in Z direction is only 3 millimeters. So to have a full freedom of design in 3D space, you need kind of that volume to play with. So there's many challenges, and you could see this as opportunities to explore. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Farm. Thank you for the great presentation. I think it was very interesting to see the design process that you're applying in the MTC for additive manufacturing electronics, and I think has been it is quite interesting to see all the stages that you are going through. So it has been a very interesting presentation. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience.
I think they know it all now.
Yeah, so I have a question myself. Do you have a specific application in mind for this design process? Or is it kind of a generic process that you apply for all the products or components that they might require or need an additively manufactured part?
I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
No, carry on.
I would say this is generally advice for any AM application, and this would apply to any product. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think there is another question from Ajid, which is asking, which is interesting to know what interest you are having from the wider industry in general.
Naeem, do you want to take that?
So what was the question again? Sorry.
Yes. So Ajit was asking, you want to know what is the interest that you are having from the wider industry in general, in terms of additive manufactured electronics.
So as you saw two slides today, one was the MTC and the other one was the National Centre of Additive Manufacturing. Now, I sort of sit in between both, and I see the electronics innovation on one aspect of it, and then the National Centre of Additive Manufacturing. Now, what we're trying to do at the moment is the key issues at the moment is people are not thinking, or what shall I say? That's the wrong word. They're too busy is the word I'm looking for. Working up with their day-to-day. The innovation side of it, in terms of, I'll give you an example, a very simple one, where a 3D part has been manufactured. Now, when you now want to 3D print some electronics on top of that, there are factors that you need to consider. That may mean that the way that 3D metal part or plastic part or whatever part was made may need to be manufactured differently. For example, when you look at 3D electronics, for example, and you're going through a structure, so a shape, if you've got a 90 degrees shape or a corner where the electronics needs to flow, you're not going to be able to get the electronics over it. So you need to then have some form of radius on it. Now that part might not have a radius on it. The challenge you might then find is, well, they can't put that radius on that machine unless you use a 5-axis machine, but that might have been using 3-axis machines or 4, so there is, the development of the electronics for 3D, only being 5-axis and 6-axis, is not quite meeting the technology that is being used currently for making the 3D parts. Does that make sense? So it needs to be aligned together. So unless it's a flat plate. Now, we've been doing some trials at the MTC where we've been putting it onto using the nano dimension, printing directly onto a flat surface of metals, polymer materials, and what we're seeing is obviously, the finish that underneath it. Does it need to be a mirror finish? Does it need to be a rougher finish? So what we want to look at next is, whatever that metal may be or plastic may be, we'll do a pill test and to see whether the adherence is better with a smoother finish, or whether it's better with a rougher finish, where it gives you that like intermetallic, strength. So that's the areas that we are sort of focused on. I hope I answered your question, Ajit. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I just had a quick question, if that's okay. As the people that act as the kind of bridging the valley of death between the low TRL level and the high TRL level, I can imagine industry, pardon me, industry comes to the MTC to seek solutions, but how does the MTC identify suitable technologies from universities, and what's the best way to start engagement with the MTC if you are a university?
Okay. I mean, to be honest, we try to reach out. We have a person at the organization who engages. She's a person who engages with all the universities. Now, in terms of technical, obviously, we don't just do electronics. We've got such a wide variety of value proposition we offer. Going from digital manufacturing all the way to manufacturing technology to advanced production systems, and then electronics is just one part of it. But one way we try to do it is through these forums and through you know, engaging with yourself and other universities. So we do that, and we have occasionally we do have events at the MTC for academics to then come and we talk about where we are with some technology, and they talk about with some technology as well. So maybe that might be another route that you know, where we bring in universities, other universities into this forum.
Great, thank you.
You're muted, Patrick.
Patrick, yeah, muted.
Okay, thank you. So what I wanted to say is that we have a couple of questions from the chat, and then there is Manolis who have raised his hand. So there is Azan who is asking if you had any interest towards the production of nano inks. Towards the production of nano inks, yes.
No, sorry, this is producing nano inks. We don't produce any inks ourselves. Is that the question you're asking?
I hope so.
Yeah. So most inks we use predominantly is predominantly for the nano dimension is quite clear that we only have two inks, one for the conductive ink and the dielectric ink. We don't use any other ink other than those two inks. But if we're using for other processes, you know, if we're using another partner with us like Optomec or any other companies, then we would we would ask. There's a list of different inks out there readily available that we would look at using and take some guidance and advice from them as well.
Thank you. I hope this answer your question, Azan. There is also a question from Inam, who is asking if there are any thoughts about on the production speed for large scale area manufacturing. I would assume is for electronics, large scale production of electronics.
Yeah. So at the moment, it's definitely an emerging market, and there will be eventually. I mean, if I look at Industry 4.0 today, you know, it's all about digitalization. Now, when they start talking about Industry 5.0, it's all about customization. And if this is something that it can go up to, that you don't really want to be keeping volumes. Not that I say they should do, but it could be customized, you know, on the fly. And that's the sort of futuristic that that people are looking. I mean, it'd be ideal then, you know, if someone putting an order, putting an order on the system, basically customizing what they want, and there goes the printer making the PCB, goes onto the assembly, puts all the components down, comes the end product. You know, that could be such a great, you know, vision, we say, in the future. So in terms of scaling up, so some of the things that it can be scaled up. So on the nano machines, some components like the one I mentioned, conical inductors, now they're literally pretty small. I mean, they were only 3mm by 3mm. Now the bed is about 160 mil. And if we were to run overnight, you know, we can produce a few hundred a day or 1,000 a day, depending on the size of the components. It can be done from that perspective. But if you're looking at some very larger items, then maybe that it depends on the size, really, more than anything else.
Thank you, Naim. So I want to hand over to Manolis, that I think he had been raising his hand for a while.
Hi everyone. Thanks for the very insightful presentations. I just want to ask you if you would you say you're limited by the design software that is currently available on the market? Because generating these, for example, 3D printed tracks on these complex contours must be quite tricky.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, there is a gap, and sometimes you have to knife and fork it to get it to work. Now, there is interestingly, you know, we're looking at, you know, people, how we train people up. You know, you need two types of skill sets in this. You need people with obviously mechanical with CAD, 5 axis, who can, or who could do 5 axis type of CAD drawings, and then on the other spectrum, then you've got the electronics person. So it's like the ECAD and the MCAD coming together. And that's definitely something is missing. I am sure there will be software out there that could be looked at, or maybe some of the, I mean, I know I think it was Autodesk had something, that they came up with this software that can do ECAD and MCAD, but I've not personally had any direct involvement with that.
Thank you. So there are still a couple of questions, I think, within the, well, there are still 3 questions from the chat. So I think if we can answer them in a short time, so I think it would be great. Otherwise, we can leave them. We can leave them and you can answer them afterwards.
Okay.
So there is Kirk Consulting, which is asking if you have done any work on IM conductors for wire bonding.
We haven't done anything. I know somebody who we spoke to. We did look into this, silvering an additive manufacturing process, which is an alternative to wire bonding. We did put a bid in, but unfortunately we were unsuccessful on that bid. But there is solution out there that can be done by using an additive manufacturing conductor. So I would, is a case consultant. If you want to speak to me offline, I'd be more than happy to discuss with you on that. So yeah, I can definitely answer your questions and sort of maybe point out the direction who that company we were talking to.
Okay, thanks, Nigel. I'll contact you offline.
Just one thing
yes.
I do want to mention. Somebody mentioned about inks, nano inks. So we're 7 catapult HVMC, 7 catapult centers, and CPI, who are another HVMC, they can advise further on nano inks. So I just thought I'd just point that out to the person who asked about the nano inks.
Thank you. And then there was a question from Simon. It was about the software for design and manufacturing. So the design software and manufacturing control software. He says that it can be a bottleneck, and he's asking if the MTC is working on the software challenges in terms of design software and manufacturing control software. I think you kind of answered it a little bit of this question before for Manolis.
Not currently, but that's definitely, this is going to be, something that we can discuss in this maybe forum, that we can discuss what the challenges we have in terms of software. But yeah, absolutely, definitely. But Simon, yeah, if I think we can obviously speak to you about that, how we can maybe looking at. I just got an email from Nano have new software to help PCB generation, which is being adapted all the time. So there is a new software that Nano have launched very recently. We've just literally received the dongle for it, so we're just in the process of installing it onto the machine. Now that maybe unlock some of the questions that you guys may have, because with the nano dimension, as I mentioned earlier on, is 2 parts. We can use the Gerber data, convert the Gerber data into a file called switch, but we can also take a SolidWorks file. They used to have a plugin where you basically tell it whether it's a conductor or an insulator, and then outputs this switch file. So there is, say, software, but there is this new software that's come out that obviously might overcome some of the issues, but I've not had a chance to use it yet.
Thank you, Naheem.